Silly season has officially begun. It's 61 days to our national elections, where we all have to mark a ballot, choosing our leaders. Parties launched their manifestos with pomp and fanfare, cajoling, insisting and promising that they, and no other, have the ability to change your life for the better. Politicians are in full electioneering mode. Door knocking, wooing the elderly and kissing babies. Meanwhile, the claws have been sharpened. Now, we've identified 3 hot topics: the economy, health and education, issues that affect us all. I'm joined in the studio by EFF Gauteng Chairperson Mandisa Mashego and ANC NEC member Ronald Lamola. Solly Malatsi is the DA national spokesperson, joining us from our Cape Town studios. A very warm welcome to all 3 of you. Let me start off first, Ronald Lamola, about the nationalisation of the Reserve Bank that we heard today. I mean, I know that Tito Mboweni is against this. What happened?
He is not against that. It's an ANC resolution from the conference that the central bank need to be publicly owned. And it's a resolution because it's necessary for the national bank or the central bank to be publicly owned. It's something which is happening all over the world. It's a debate that is happening every part of the world, even in Britain. They've nationalized the central bank. It's not something which is done by mad people. It's something which it does happen.
Affect the independence?
It doesn't affect the independence of the Reserve Bank. We've got various institutions in this country which are owned by the state or publicly owned, but they remain independent. Like the public protector remains independent, Chapter 9 institutions. There are various institutions that we have which are independent, but the public purse funds them, the public purse or the public owns them. So the fact that an institution is owned by the state, it does not compromise its independence.
Right, Solly, I think you'd probably disagree with that. What are your thoughts, Solly Malatsi?
I mean, absolutely. I think for the country to have policy certainty, you need to have clarity in terms of what the future of the Reserve Bank is. And the doublespeak that continues in the ANC is the one that creates the uncertainty in the market. We don't believe that it is necessary to nationalize the South African Reserve Bank. We believe that its independence is quite important in making sure that you still separate that distinction between the Reserve Bank and any potential political influence that might happen as a result of nationalization. But most importantly, to make sure that for the economic prosperity of the country, to provide clarity to market forces, we absolutely need the independence of the Reserve Bank. And for Mr. Lamola to indicate that the Minister of Finance isn't against it, I mean, this is the kind of doublespeak that the ANC does. The ANC in government says one thing, the ANC out of government contradicts what the government says.
Mandisa Mashego, I mean, the EFF champions nationalisation, so are you applauding this move?
Proudly so. We must all remember that it was the EFF's proposal to make sure that the state establishes a state-owned bank and nationalizes the Reserve Bank. In fact, the EFF's position is that we need several strategic state-owned banks, of course, to intervene in the consumer market. So we need a retail state-owned bank, we need a housing state-owned bank, we need an agricultural state-owned bank to support our agrarian reform, because we want to propose an agrarian act, in fact, introduce an agrarian reform act as soon as we have a greater influence in government after the May 2019 elections. We just hope that the ANC will not flip-flop on this one and will not go back on...
Okay, flip-flopping, you know, broken promises, big promises, electioneering, kissing babies, all that kind of stuff. We see this coming up, right? We've got 61 days to go. The reason I've got the 3 of you here is we're trying to get to the reality, right, without the spin. Talking about important topics, okay? So if we go sort of off-key, I'm going to jump in and try and get you guys focused on the topics. The first one we're going to start off with is the economy. Let's take a listen.
Let us grow the economy so that all may have decent jobs and an improving quality of life.
We will rebuild our economy by maximizing the sectors that are key to job creation.
What we need to fix is the economy. Once we've fixed the economy, there won't be crime in South Africa.
So, Ronald, the ANC wants to benefit everybody, but what we've actually seen is that a very few have benefited from the economy. So how are you going to change this? What's different going ahead?
Obviously, we've got a clear plan in terms of growing the economy. You have seen from the recent released statistics, the economy has grown by about 1.4%. And there's also been a growth in foreign direct investment. The ANC has a plan. Obviously, there has been problems and challenges, which we accept, but in certain reality, the country's GDP has tripled since 1994.
But the National Development Plan, have you reached any of those
No,
targets?
we have not reached it because we have not been growing at 5% as per the target of the National Development Plan because of the challenges that we have encountered. But we are now saying we're now on a renewal path. We're on a path that will enable us to grow the economy, and a path, as you're asking, that the economy has only benefited a few. It's true, it has continued to benefit that had previously benefited under apartheid. We need to make sure that the economy benefits also the black majority of this country. And in that regard, the ANC has spoken about set-asides in terms of reviving the PFMA, which will enable a regime for set-aside. But also the president, a week ago, has signed the Competition Amendment Act into law, which is going to deconcentrate the economies because the South African economy is a unique economy which has got high concentration in various sectors by few monopolies.
Okay.
So the act will enable
yes,
us
do you
to...
think the
Jane,
ANC is
the critical thing is that calculations based on GDP don't mean anything to the average person in the street, especially if you consider that in Gauteng the average income of workers is ranging between 1,500 and 3,500 rand. That is not a living wage. 7 million people in South Africa, African capable people who are jobless, need jobs desperately. And the ANC's terrible performance in terms of making sure that the economy is benefiting workers and it's benefiting black women who are right at the bottom of the barrel in terms of the poverty scales have not succeeded in helping us. So we need a definitive plan. We need a state interventionist plan to make sure that jobs can benefit through income, through regular monthly income. The ANC talks about GDP growth, but they sustain labor broking. They sustain this corruptible and corrupt state tender system that doesn't actually empower workers and only empowers so-called tenderpreneurs.
Okay, let's talk about the EF and what your plans are. It sounds like you're taking from Donald Trump's playbook, and the criticism about the EFF's economy plans is that it's actually going to chase investors away.
Well, I'm not sure how we're going to chase investors away if we are offering. We've gone so far as to detail offering free tax zones, but they will come with strong conditions, especially the special economic zones that we're going to establish in at least 7 provinces, because the critical issue is that we cannot afford an economy that is centralized around a province that only has about 1% of the overall landmass of the country. I mean, Gauteng is 1.8 million hectares, when the rest of the country is 122 million hectares. It's physically and geographically unsustainable. So our plan is that we are going to introduce special economic zones in 7 provinces to do precisely what we want. You have not done that. Please, don't say you've done it. You've never done it. If you had done it, we would not have a problem where people need to come to Gauteng to look for jobs. And there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with people moving freely for economic purposes. That's necessary in a free, democracy. But the issue is that we can't continue and sustain the rate of urbanization that is happening in South Africa. It's creating a huge imbalance, and it's leaving our rural areas virtually empty. And by the way, the rural areas are wealthy in mineral wealth.
Yeah, and you're right, that's not being exploited.
Exactly.
So, Malatsi, I mean, do you think that, firstly, that the EFF's policy is sustainable and that the ANC is hitting the marks that it's promised us?
Well, I mean, if you look at the statistics of unemployment in the country and the poverty levels, it is most blatant evidence that the ANC hasn't done sufficient to address those problems. I mean, more than half of young people in the country are unemployed, and poverty, many black South Africans continues to be trapped in poverty. And what the ANC's economic policies have done is to create two sets of societies, one of insiders locked in economic opportunities, and outsiders who are mostly black, mostly in poor communities, without any form of hope of employment because of the lack of skills. And that is why in our manifesto, job creation is a key component of that. We propose in there 3 critical things that will help address unemployment, particularly youth unemployment. Talk about the voluntary national youth civilian program, which will provide a 1-year training skills development program for school leavers. But in addition to that, we're talking about making sure that we provide a job seeker subsidy, so that mostly graduates who have, as a result of urbanization, have to search for employment opportunities in cities, because cities are the future drivers of economic
this is something
growth
that all the parties
they can have support
focusing on.
from
So
the state.
I'm going to cut into you there because we have little time. I've got lots to talk through. Let's look at what the party said on the education issue.
We congratulate the young people of our country for having made a call on their government for free education. And free education is now being implemented on a progressive basis.
Bana ba rona ba tsena skolo ebile ba fetse skolo. They don't get to be dropouts before they hit matric, because the DA governs. We make sure our kids can get through school.
We are going to make education free and decolonized. Arinya ko lena fela ka dilo tsa ko west. We want to learn about African things.
2 things to you, Ronald. We still got students in prison protesting for free education. Yes. What's been done about getting them out so that they can carry on studying?
Yes, there is a challenge, but the reality is that we've made fees to fall for more than 750,000 students. There are no fee schools
what about those
in the country.
Almost
90% of the schools in the country are no fee schools. So with regard to those that are in jail, obviously there's a process that is being undergone by the Department of Justice and the Presidency.
You've just sent someone back to jail.
With the law, you have to follow due process. You cannot pardon a person before there's conviction. The President has spoken about that there must be a due process.
But Kaya has been convicted. Kaya has been convicted. He's been languishing.
No, but it's not possible that a legal matter can be resolved in one day.
No. You said
there's due process.
There must be conviction.
There's due process that
can be given.
And the Department of Justice is in the process dealing with such issues.
3 years,
so the department.
No,
he was convicted only this year. He was not convicted in the last 3 years. No, he was only convicted.
Okay, Malatsi. The ANC is promising education for all. I know that the DA wants to provide, all the basic additions to schools, the coaches, the assistant teachers, all that sort of thing. When we've got a chronic teacher shortage, how does the DA plan to address that? Where's this money going to come from?
Sure, we got to look at this holistically. I mean, one of the key interventions that we propose is the merger of the Department of Higher Education and Science and Technology, so that they can drive innovation and research, so that we'll then have a focused intervention in terms of the investment that would make in the education system. But more than that, I think it starts at basic education level, where we need to make sure that the conditions that our children go to school to, they go to world-class infrastructure, it's in safe communities, that they've got proper sanitation, and that the teachers themselves are adequately trained. And what we would do with regards to educator trainings, to reopen teachers training colleges, so that we can make sure that the people who have the responsibility to educate our future generations are properly skilled, they are upskilled at all times. And in addition to that, is to make sure that the curriculum and the syllabus, reflects the demands and the future of the 21st century where we are.
What is
and in terms of, can I make this point?
Very critical in the education sector,
higher
beyond
education,
anything else.
I
We
think
need
we gotta
let's go over to decolonizing education.
to produce an education curriculum, one that develops children from an extremely young age, from a very young age, because it's proven that if children don't go to school at an early enough age and don't start getting introduced to numerical concepts and basic mathematics from as early as the age of 3, they struggle in matric. And that's what happens with majority black kids. And that is why we are unable to produce the kind of skills, technical skills, engineering skills, more doctors, more scientists, the kind of skills that the EFF wants to use to develop a very productive economy. You know that we spoke about the special economic zones, but it doesn't end there. The whole economic spin-off and the whole economic beneficiation starts with land. If we don't expropriate land, obviously without compensation, because we can't continue benefiting people who have benefited for about 376 years at the expense of 80%, if not 90% of the population. So if we don't start dealing with the land issue, everything else we are talking about is going to be useless. It's pretty much similar to not dealing with crime and then saying you're going to produce a stable economy. Nobody invests, even yourself and myself as domestic potential investors, if we were. You don't invest in a crime-ridden country. And so what the EFF says about increasing the number of police, making policing more visible, making sure we have more capable police who are properly paid, is critical to balance with our economic plans.
Let's hear what you have to say about the health sector. Let's focus on what each party plans to do with this very troubled health sector. Hold on a minute.
I want to say that
the enabling legislation for the NHI and make sure that everyone has access to quality health care regardless of their ability to pay.
Where the DA governs, more people get quality health care because we build world-class hospitals in places like Ekhayelitsha. Today, they've got incredible hospitals.
Let's vote for the EFF to correct the public health care. We want to put more resources in the public health care.
Okay, so universal health coverage by 2025. I mean, the reality is we don't have good enough facilities, we don't have enough nurses, the conditions are appalling, and the plan is not anywhere near completion. So how are you going to address those issues, come up with this universal plan?
No, the plan is in your completion. We have got the NHI bill that has been published, which is going to incorporate all the public infrastructure resources, including with the private sector resources, to enable universal access to healthcare. We have also built hospitals. We have also built clinics. The department is now saying it's going to advertise posts for health practitioners that is going to fill the vacancies across the country. So there is a plan that is in action.
How do you make it
might not be enough.
Keep people here, because we are losing medical staff in our droves.
Yeah, we have already put a system that enables doctors to be paid better.
Jane, there's no such
health
system.
Infrastructure. Health infrastructure is currently being built, even in Gauteng.
No, it's not true.
It's not true.
Majority of our
we're working on.
Are in a state of
let's.
There is a challenge, but we are working on it in terms of the plan.
Go ahead, Solly.
I mean, the ANC government is failing with the basics. There are clinics in rural areas, in villages, that there is chronic shortage of medicine, that there is chronic shortage of medical professionals. And as a result, the public health system is collapsing. In fact, it has collapsed. Where we govern, what we have tried to do is to make sure that people live closer to areas with access to primary health care so that they don't have to travel longer distances. We make sure that medical supplies are in stock, and we make sure that, again, the placement of doctors takes place swiftly so that you don't have a situation where medical interns, it takes forever to place them, as is currently the case with the ANC government. And a key aspect of our manifesto is to make sure that we extend the operating hours of primary health care centers, that we build an additional 50 clinics in the first year to make sure that we increase the footprint for access to medical services, because for communities not to have direct access to a primary healthcare facility closest to the area where they live, we maximize the chances of them not getting the treatment.
I'm going to jump in here again. You know, that's going to cost a lot of money, and I'm intrigued to know where it comes from. Mandisa, very quickly, you say that our system's in disrepair. What do you mean by that?
The majority of hospitals, for instance, in Gauteng, despite the few new hospitals that were built in Soweto, in Katlehong. In
Yeah,
fact, those new hospitals
you
have
acknowledge that there's a few
those
that
new,
were built.
yes, you
Yeah,
have
we
to
have.
acknowledge the
We have
reality.
built.
The truth, Jane,
It's true.
is that those new hospitals are barely just standing as the infrastructure is standing there, looking pretty, but when you go inside, Jabulani Hospital, you have security guards who take blood pressure because the ANC has collapsed public health care. You know that we focused on public health care in 2018, so it gave us a very good picture of exactly what needs to be done. But let's start with the primary health care issue. We need 24-hour clinics. That's what we need. Because primary health care, if you can't get it right at that level, you're going to have deeper crises when you want to come to district, regional, and of course even academic hospitals, which we do need.
So you agree with the DA on primary health care here?
Primary health care, I mean, that's issues of service delivery. You cannot disagree. It doesn't matter what your ideological differences are. You can't be stupid enough
No, anyway,
to say
they are married.
yes.
They are married on everything.
Okay, I tell you what,
they should be.
They are married on everything.
It's a big topic. We've got so many days to go. We'll definitely come back. We're definitely going to revisit these. We're going to see if anything has changed. But thank you,
You want
all
to
three of you.
disagree with
Lamola, Mandisa, Mashego,
No, we've already done them.
Malatsi.
It's not like something we've
We're
done them.
international travellers. Weather's up next. I'm going to try and talk over them. We head over to DRC, where the deadly Ebola virus is spreading. Stay with us.